Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Mr. Unchained, also known as Biscuit Oliva. Let's get right into it. Biscuit Oliva, also sometimes romanized into Biscuit Oliver, especially in the English dub, is a character from the BAKI franchise and is an assassin and bounty hunter working for the United States government, as well as being a special jailer in the Arizona State Prison. He is one of the strongest characters in the BAKI universe, the strongest in America, who possesses an iron body and is invulnerable to almost anything you can do to him. So let's get right into it. He is, of course, the strongest man in America and the only man in the Arizona State Prison who has complete and utter freedom, as he is considered prison staff. Apparently, at some point, the government decided that it was cheaper to pay for his lifestyle, his meals, living quarters, library, and everything else that he has in prison, where many prisoners are in prison due to Oliver. That's a weird sentence. He's a high-paid mercenary for the U.S. government, specializing in apprehending and terminating criminals or threats whose power are beyond the capacity of the conventional law enforcement. His intelligence is also well above average. Despite the extreme focus on working on his muscle mass, Biscuit Oliva also has increased cognitive abilities in reading and studying in various areas, as he owns a massive library in his living quarters, and he states that all of the books in his libraries are ones that he has read. He knows in full detail why nobles stuck their pinky in their drinking tea, as well as being skilled in toxicology, and he's an incredibly intelligent man. When it comes to combat skills, Oliva should be a lot more knowledgeable than the average man, but he still falls quite short compared to the Eastern martial arts masters such as Kaiokaku and Doppo Orochi, as shown in their fights. They have a level of mastery that he can't reach because he never really trained in any arts. He kind of just was unbelievably physically strong and sort of just took the punishment and just punched the shit out of you. There's not much you could do against that. So Oliva, like Yujiro, is also extremely arrogant and contemptuous of most of his enemies. While quite knowledgeable in the areas of martial arts, he is by no means a genius at it, certainly not at the level of Yujiro himself, making him vulnerable to complex techniques and cheat tactics that are employed by other masters. He shares his profession with Yujiro, as both of them are high-end mercenaries. Most governments, however, stated that Biscuit is far easier to work with than Yujiro, which makes sense because despite his arrogance, he makes it a point to do his job well and to treat other in law enforcement with some sort of dignity and respect, whereas Yujiro sort of regards everyone other than himself as sort of garbage. So that makes sense. And Biscuit obviously also respects other martial art masters who can prove that they can stand with him to any degree. While sometimes looked at as a arrogant hunk of oversized muscle, he can be really likable man to hang out with and sort of have a drink with. He'll even offer the captain Sonoda a Japanese imported beer during his visit to his prison room. He's often wearing a pretty big smile even during fights, and it's rare that anyone manages to piss him off enough that he takes his smile off. He is an enormous Cuban-born American man who has brown skin, short hair, and a thin black mustache. At first, it's easy to mistake him for a man suffering from obesity, but on a closer look, it is completely obvious that he is composed of just sheer muscle, which are unbelievably well developed. He's also known for almost always having a smile on his face, as I mentioned earlier. In his debut, he wore a red shirt and didn't have a mustache yet, and in the third season, he wears a purple shirt with the mustache now. Usually, however, during a fight, he only wears a Speedo, exposing his entire muscular body. I believe this to be some sort of psychological technique, in that he kind of shows how unbelievably strong and big he is to his opponents, and it's sort of to psych them out and going, dude, I'm like, look at me, I'm like so much bigger than you. You really want to take this fight? And the answer is almost always no. You do not want to take that fight. Biscuit Oliva was born in Cuba and later on migrated to the United States. He made a living as a prized mercenary for the U.S. government as well as other countries. He also serves as a specialized jailer in the Arizona State Prison due to him being due to the facility containing some of the most dangerous criminals in the world, and him being the only person of truly being able to keep them in line. In his later years, he is dispatched by the USA to fight Yujiro Hanma. After fighting his way through the groups of drug cartels, he encounters Yujiro at the leader's mansion and proceeds to kill the cartel leader, before trying to engage Yujiro in combat. Oliva rushes at the fighter, but Yujiro avoids his attack, and after a while, Mr. Unchained introduces himself, and as it turns out, after the introductions, that Yujiro recognizes Oliva and he's honored. And after a short conversation, Yujiro tells him that it's too early to quote unquote eat Oliva and decides to leave. And this is obviously Yujiro stating that, Oliva still has room to grow, and he doesn't want to beat him until he's at his best, because he wants to prove that, he's stronger than everyone else. It doesn't matter what condition or how well they've developed. It doesn't matter. The Unchained is disappointed at that fact and begins to explain that he came all this way to meet him. However, Yujiro surprises him with a front kick and knocks him back, and this allows Yujiro to sort of make a getaway. Oliva sort of just smiles and says that Yujiro will certainly become stronger. So, and during the, BAKI Most Evil Death Row Convicts arc, he is shown, in a hostage situation with Jeff Markson, a corrupt cop that he beat up in the past, who shoots Oliver with a shotgun, but Oliver's muscles just sort of absorb the shotgun shells and is like, well, that's not it. And then he kicks him out of the window and kills him. Oliva later also fights Sikorsky and just absolutely devours him with little to no effort. He also he later takes Sikorsky to the police. He is ambushed by a disguised Doyle. However, he fights him off, but Doyle escapes. He later tries to, this is just a funny thing, try his hand at judo, and because he wanted to get a black belt, and so he told Shibukawa and Captain Sonoda that he wants to get to black belt today, and they were like, yeah, that's not how that works. You can't just start today and become a black belt. And he goes, why not? I'll try really hard. What if I beat everyone here? And Captain Sonoda, in his idiocy, goes, but we have Olympic level fighters. Like, bro, have you seen this man? What do you think that's going to do? So he goes on to literally destroy everyone. And then he tries to fight Goki Shibukawa using judo, but he obviously loses. But Goki still sort of tosses him his black belt and says, you are now endorsed by Goki Shibukawa. And so if anyone says anything, you tell them that, all right? From today, you are a black belt, sort of. Because regardless of how strong, he isn't with judo, it really doesn't matter. If you just have that much strength, it's like, what are you going to do? And during the Great Chinese Tournament arc, he obviously fights Shogun Ron, who is, a very famous martial artist from China who's been fighting for basically 30 years and is undefeated his entire life. And who also, funnily enough, has the nicknamed Mr. Unchained. So they fight, and he beats Shogun Ron, a man who's been literally undefeated his entire life, by using his own stance. Shogun Ron used a stance called the hand pocket, which Oliva had never seen in his life, and he used that technique to beat him, just to sort of show him how far out of his caliber he is. So as I mentioned earlier, and I'm just going to, quickly run through this, Oliva is a gigantic man who sort of looks overweight when wearing a suit, but his muscles are incredibly dense, enough to repel, shotgun blasts and thrusts from a katana before even tightening them. Even barrages of sharp knuckle strikes fail to sort of cut him because he's so unbelievably strong. Oliva also has an incredible amount of endurance and stamina, as well as a massive tolerance to pain, being able to tank attacks which could knock or kill any other human with basically slight or no injuries. He relies primarily on strength and durability granted by his muscles and cares very little for technique. as well as as well as when he easily broke the spine of Kaio Yu, who bragged that his body was as strong as diamonds, and he just crushed him into pieces, which just made Yujiro die of laughter. He was just off the stage dying of laughter. He was like, "What kind of diamond gets squished like that?" His diamonds are so strong that sorry, pardon, his diamonds. Jeez, his punches are so strong that he often caves in the chest of his opponents, killing them instantaneously. He once punched Jay Guevara so hard that all of the GPS of the world started to malfunction, because there's this weird thing that was stated in the 4th season of the BAKI anime, that there are satellites all over the world which watch, basically, I believe it was 3 people. It was Yujiro Hanma, Biscuit Oliva, and Che Guevara. These 3 are such big threats that like there are satellites pointed to each of them, and if any of them starts moving at a faster speed than, I think it was like 5 kilometers an hour, I can't remember off the top of my head, half of all the satellites on the planet get directed to that individual just to sort of keep up with where he's going. And so the downside to that is when one of them starts moving quickly, it sort of throws off all the GPS in the world off, because half of the satellites that they're referring to are gone and not in use anymore. And so when he punched Jay Guevara, he moved up in speed, which meant half of the freaking satellites on the planet started watching him. And so all the GPS on the planet just started to malfunction. And at the end of BAKI season 4, BAKI and Yujiro obviously fight. However, BAKI does come out to be the winner. It was a really, really close fight, but in the end, BAKI does win. However, this was also seen, BAKI, he also has an inhuman recovery speed. He's able to rapidly heal scars from literally just eating steak. That's his like healing method, and it works brilliantly. Like even after the BAKI and BAKI's fight with Biscuit got better a lot faster than BAKI did. Like BAKI was still looking broken and really tired and everything, and Biscuit was kind of back up. He was like, yeah, it is what it is, and he was rolling, which was amazing because BAKI also has really, really good like recovery speed, because he's BAKI. Well, okay. So we're at 12.5 minutes. I really didn't want to go this long, but sometimes I start ranting and I can't really stop. So, well, if you somehow made it to the end of the video, well, thank you so much. And, of course, if you like the video, like, comment, subscribe, all the basic stuff. And I'll catch you on the flip side.